Welcome to our webinar, Trauma, Understanding a Child's Pain and Loss Through a Pet's Journey. We're going to be using a book for this webinar. It's called Boyd Friend, His Yippee Skippy Journey to a Forever Home. So this will be a little bit different. We're going to be drawing parallels between a pet and his journey to his adoptive family and the trauma that he experienced to our foster children. It'll be a little different, but I think it'll be fun. First, we're going to go through a quick overview of what is trauma and how does it affect our foster children. So here's the cover of this book. And if you would like a copy of this book, we will have a few. So if you'll just send me an email, then I will send that with your care coordinator to your next visit, or we can send it in the mail, whatever we need to do. So what is trauma? Trauma is an emotional response to an intense event that threatens or causes harm. The harm can be physical or emotional, real or perceived, and it can threaten the child or someone close to him or her. Trauma can be the result of a single event, or it can result from exposure to multiple events over time. And to be clear, any child that has come into care, they have experienced trauma. Simply being separated from their family of origin is a very traumatic event. So every child that you have in your home from foster care, they have experienced trauma. So this definitely is relevant to all of them. Here's some examples of traumatic events. So that would include abuse, and that's physical, sexual, or emotional, neglect, the effects of poverty, and that could be, hunger, not having adequate clothing, food, shelter. Being separated from loved ones and coming into care definitely qualifies as that, because they're separated from parents, of course, grandparents maybe, and sometimes siblings. We hope to avoid that always, but sometimes that happens. Bullying. And witnessing harm to a loved one or a pet, witnessing any kind of violence like that is certainly traumatic. Natural disasters or accidents, and unpredictable parental behavior due to addiction or mental illness. Those all qualify as traumatic events. So what are some of the effects of trauma on children? So that would be the inability to control physical responses to stress. So that would even include maybe anxiety attacks, things like that. Chronic illness, of course, chronic stress and trauma that can lower your immune system, and you're more apt to be sick. Difficulty thinking, learning, and concentrating, impaired memory, difficulty switching from one thought or activity to another, low self-esteem, inability to regulate emotions. I think most foster parents have seen that. Maybe an angry outburst. All children go through that, but definitely an effect of trauma. Difficulty forming attachments to caregivers, trust issues, which would go into difficulty forming attachment to caregivers, and depression and anxiety. So how does this affect behavior in our children? So that could be lack of impulse control, maybe poor decision-making there, fighting, aggression, or running away. Later on, that can become substance abuse in our older children or teens. And then suicide, that could be thoughts of suicide, attempts, all of that would go into that category. All right, I've got a little video. So this is going to kind of lead us into our story about Boyd Friend, our dog. So this video is about Blossom, and she goes home with a foster dad who helps her. She comes from a traumatized past, and so this is just a little clip about their journey together, and it'll help lead into our story.
She is just terrified. We pull up this bed, and there's this little dog. She just had those big, loving, cartoon eyes that just say, "Help me." I scooped her up, and I put her in a crate and took her home. We just went and sat in the garage, and that just violent shaking. Myself and a team and the whole rescue community came together, and we all went and we worked to clear out the entire shelter. mentally she just shut down, and for days she just couldn't even function. What I thought would be a couple of weeks ended up turning into a couple more weeks, and then months and months on end. Everything was a first for her. She'd never felt grass before, so when she's putting her little paws on it, she's just terrified. And the sunlight scares her. Everything scared her. If you would look at her or make eye contact, she would run. She was an escape artist. And she would sometimes hide under the table or sit in the corner for days. The only time she'd come out is when I'd take her out to the bathroom.
Okay, so after we go to the bathroom, okay, everybody in, and then Blossom just takes off and goes straight to her hiding spot.
Instead of making her get out of that hiding spot, I just moved the entire table. I just built her a little bedroom. Once that base was built, we started seeing a lot of firsts.
All right, so we are hand feeding Miss Blossom just to kind of build some trust.
I'd cook all of her meals because it's the only way I could get her to eat, and it's the only way I could add enough moisture because she wouldn't drink out of a water bowl. She didn't know how.
She saw Zoe drinking and she just went up there and drank water. Just happened. Good girl, Blossom. Good girl. Oh, sorry. Sorry. That was it. That was the first time I've ever seen her drink water. It's been 6 weeks now. Ah, that feels so good. She's cruising the other dogs now. 2 times. Be cool, you gotta be cool.
Out of nowhere, she jumped up on the couch to sit next to me.
As you can tell, like, super weird about it as soon as the camera turns on. But you know what? No, stay. She's up here. Stay. It's okay. Relax. You're a good girl.
As other rescue dogs came into the house, she would start to greet them. She was happy to meet him.
All of a sudden, she just starts running around and wagging her tail. It's one of the happiest moments of my life, and absolutely of hers, because here she is, almost a 3-year-old dog, and she wagged her tail for the first time. And getting to be a part of that made all of the 3-month journey worth it.
Look at that. Look at that tail wagging. Blossom, good girl. Oh, this is amazing.
So I thought that was really heartwarming. So what we saw there is Blossom. You know, she's a dog, not a child, but there are still some parallels that we can draw in between, you know, an animal that's gone through a traumatized past and people. There are some things that remain the same. She was fearful. There were new experiences that she had never experienced, like drinking out of a bowl of water, things that are normal for other dogs. She didn't know that. And so what we saw there is Blossom's foster dad. He was very patient with her. He was creative. He was kind. And he was patient enough to build that trust with her. And so because she had that trust built with him, she started to feel ready to experience new things. And her foster dad, he was willing to try new things with her. He was encouraging Blossom on her progress, constantly giving her praise and letting her know she was on the right track. And then you saw at the end, she's becoming confident and she's happy. She was 3 years old and just started wagging her tail for the first time. That's a really big deal. So even though that's about a dog, I thought that was a little bit encouraging, and that would get us into our story. So what I'm going to do is kind of go through our story chapter by chapter, and I'll show you some of the pictures as well. And then we'll do a little bit more in depth in how we can draw our parallels. So the title on this again is Boyd Friend, His Yippee Skippy Journey to a Forever Home. And I know it'll be backwards for you, but we can look at the pictures. And I'm not going to read it, just summarize a little. And this is written by Patricia Watkins. So at the beginning of the story, it opens up and Boyd Friend, our dog, he is beginning his story in the shelter. And so he backtracks a little bit and starts talking about where he came from. So he remembers that the home he came from, he lived out on a back porch, and he doesn't really remember kindness or a lot of good memories or warmth, but he does remember that he could hear the people inside and that he liked that, and he could smell food, the smells of food coming from inside. And it just reminded him that there were people there and that sometimes they would remember to feed him. So even though his past wasn't the best, he looked back on it with warmth. It was all he knew. It was his comfort. So then his family moves away and he imagines that maybe they just didn't see him. He's playing in between the boxes and they must have just missed him. So after about 4 days after waiting for his family to come back, he is just too hungry. He'd been drinking rainwater, but he's just so hungry he couldn't hold on. So he just started to run. And this part's kind of heartbreaking. He mentions how he's got spotty hair missing in areas, and he's bony. So he's running from home to home. He can smell food, and all of the people are just pointing at him and telling him to go away and shooing him away. And he was scared and he was embarrassed, and he just kept running and running and running until he didn't remember anything anymore. And when Boyd Friend woke up next, he was in the back of an animal control van. And so he didn't know where he was. He's with other dogs. There are people yelling at him and dogs barking. Then they finally arrive at the shelter and he sees a person. And he's so excited to see a person that's smiling. And they give him a collar and a leash. And he feels extra special to have something of his own. So then Boyd Friend finally gets to eat. He'd been waiting for that, and he just ate and ate and ate. And then he mentions, because he's in a shelter with a bunch of other dogs, that the next meals that he got, he just kept getting shoved away from his food. But he wasn't angry because he knew those dogs were hungry too, and they were scared. And he recognized the pain that they had been through was just like his. But you can see him there, and he's just dreaming about having a friend. So there he's playing with a little girl, and he's got his own leash, and they're outside. And he finally goes to sleep. Next, he's getting some medical care. And so that, of course, is scary, but he's just excited to have some human interaction again, to have someone there talking to him and paying him attention. And he recounts wanting to cuddle up with the other dogs just to stay warm, just to have somebody close. And then somebody comes back in the shelter. He had been kind of lonely because no people were coming back that far in the shelter. So somebody comes to get him, and he's worried he's going for medical care again. But he gets up and he sees his foster mom there waiting in the lobby. And so the employee at the shelter and his foster mom start to talk about his medical records and all the things, all of the information that they had about him. And Boyd Friend does feel nervous because, he's got kennel cough, he's got hair missing, and he feels embarrassed and worried that his foster mom won't want him because of his past. And so that's chapter 1. So we're going to look into that a little bit and see where we can draw our parallels. So chapter 1, where am I? So we see Boyd Friend is just waiting at the shelter. And it reminds me of so many of our foster children. They're waiting at the DSS office because they're just waiting there. They're listening to phone calls about them from their caseworker, answering questions, maybe with licensing agencies like Miracle Hill or somewhere else. And they're listening to all of this information about themselves, and it's reminding them of where they came from and questions that they have about themselves. And then we can see that Boyfriend's traumatic past is his familiar. He doesn't know anything else. Living out on that back porch, that's all he's ever known. He doesn't know that it was anything different than life should be. He doesn't know that, some dogs get to sleep inside at night and they have a warm place to rest, and they are fed regularly, and they go on walks with their family or play in the backyard or whatever it may be. He's never had that. And he's just felt unwanted and rejected over and over again. And that is so much like our foster children. They have these traumatic pasts. They don't know anything else, and they don't know that it's different from what other children are experiencing. Sometimes they do if they're an older child, but all that they do know is they felt unwanted. They felt rejection over and over, especially if they've been in foster care before, maybe multiple placements. That rejection is starting to stick with them. And then Boyfriend's ride in the van to the shelter is just like, it reminds me of the ride that our foster children have to the DSS office right after they're brought into care, whether that be, law enforcement or a judge's orders, whatever it may be. They're still going to have that ride to DSS to meet with their caseworker and to find placement. And everything's uncertain. They've just a lot of times had a serious event that brought them into care. So they're still trying to wrap their minds around what just happened. Why am I here? Is this my fault? And so they're going to need a caring adult like you or your foster parent, caseworkers, any adults around them. They need that help to process what has just happened. What has happened? What do we do now? What's next? And to reassure them. And then we see that Boyfriend, he's excited and he's nervous to meet his foster family and go to his new home. He meets foster mom and he's automatically worried about, what is she going to think? I have this past. Is she going to reject me because of this? And our foster children are the same. That they may feel that because of what they've been through, they're different than some other children, that they may not be wanted. And so reassuring them is so important, that they are wanted, and their past, it doesn't make them who they are, and we just need to move forward. And we're going to help them move forward and heal, be there for them. So let's go into chapter 2. So chapter 2 is Who Am I? So we open up back in the lobby. Boyfriend is there with his foster mom and the shelter employee, and they're talking about his personality, that he's timid and sweet, and that he's really frail. So they're noticing that he does have some medical concerns still. And foster mom is asking, is he really 18 months old? Because he's so thin and frail. And so he's excited. Boyfriend's just excited that they're talking about him, and he realizes that he's going to go home with foster mom. And so he's so excited, but you can see here he's still doubting because of his medical history that he's going to be wanted. And then here it's so sweet, they're connecting, and he says, what? She doesn't mind? Someone scratch me. He's so excited, and he realizes that his foster mom doesn't care what he's been through. She's just going to be there for him. And so foster mom starts to talk to him about what to expect while he's with her. She starts telling him about medical visits, that he's going to go see her veterinarian, and that he can leave his cares behind because it's now just time to focus on getting him healthy and recovering. And so now he gets to ride in the truck, which is a first for him. He gets to stick his head out the window. And he is so excited. And so foster mom realizes that he likes to be called Boy. So she calls him Boyfriend. And that's where that name came from for him. And so on the ride to her house, she lets him know again what to expect, that they're going to learn words, play games, and they're going to laugh at each other, and that he'll be loved. She tells him just to relax and rest. So once he arrives at the home, they get out and they go for a walk. And he had not been able to do that at his home before. So this is new for him. He's already learning new things. He's got a fence he can run and all along the fence, and he's very excited. And then foster mom takes him into a finished barn because he's so sick, but he's there. He's got heat. He's got his own kennel. He's got his own place to sleep with his own toys and own blanket. And he's never had anything just, to be his own before. And so that's so special for him. Foster mom even has on some calming music to help him get to rest. So you can see he's laying down in his kennel there, and he just goes right to sleep. And foster mom's already getting him set into a routine. So she tells him she'll be back in 3 hours and keeps her word on it. So foster mom comes back in 3 hours, and he's ready to go for a walk again and then eat dinner. And so we're already getting right into that routine, and he starts to know what to expect. And at bedtime, he's got his warm blanket, his music, everything again. So he's really starting to understand and enjoy this routine. And then you can see the next morning, foster mom brings in clean bedding, and he just can't believe it. He's never had anything like that before. And he asked her, "Where did you learn to be such a wonderful friend?" So after a few days, we can see he's all rested up. He's recovering. He's getting energy. And so he is ready to go into foster mom's house. He has been staying in a finished barn. So foster mom talks to him about what to expect. They're continuing with their routine. So he's outside more. He's playing more. He's gaining confidence, and foster mom's encouraging him. He's starting to play outside. And so foster mom tells him that, she's got expectations, so that for him to be able to come into her home, he's got to get a bath, and he's finally strong enough. So Boyd Friend gets his bath, and he thinks that's kind of funny. It's a new experience. He's a little scared. But he says that a bath is a small price to pay to stay in a home. And he's so excited, and he's talking to himself to remember that carpet and rugs are not grass. Don't break things, don't beg for food. But he says he doesn't have to, because his friend always remembers to feed him. So he's starting to understand that foster mom is going to take care of him. He's gaining that trust, knowing that he doesn't have to beg for food. She's going to feed him. That's not a concern anymore. And so funny thing to note with him is Boyd Friend, he notices his reflection in anything shiny. So that will come later. So foster mom gives him a tour of the home. And she shows him where he'll be sleeping inside. She shows him where the treat jar is, where she cooks her meals. And he's still noticing his reflection in all the pans. And so on this page, foster mom's talking to him, and she mentions to him that he's a rescue. And that really confuses him, because he said, "I'm not a rescue. I'm Boyd Friend, remember?" So he starts to question who he is. So I'll stop there. Let's look at chapter 2. Chapter 2, Who Am I? We start with Boyd Friend is listening to the shelter employee telling his foster mom about his health history, and he's worried that he won't be wanted. And our foster children may worry that because of their traumatic past, they may be rejected or moved. And then the ride home with Boyd Friend's foster mom is very much like the initial conversation between parent and foster parent and child. She gives him an idea of what to expect during his time with her, including the activities they're going to do together, medical visits, anything else that the foster parent and child need to discuss when they're coming into this placement. Especially those first few weeks, foster children may have, of course, they'll have a physical, they'll have a medical visit, and then they may have some mental health evaluations or visits as well. So that's important to discuss with the child as well, that it's not a scary thing. It's a good thing, and talk about what to expect with that as well. And then foster mom gives boyfriend a tour of her home, and she shows him a place that's just for him with his own fuzzy blanket and beautiful music, and makes him feel welcome, that he's got something of his own in the home. It's not just visiting someone else's home. He's got his own place there. He's a part of this home now. And then foster mom gets boyfriend into a routine. He learns the house rules, and he gains new experiences like trying new foods. So in the story, foster mom's giving boyfriend things like carrots and broccoli, and he loves that. So of course, he's never had a fresh vegetable like that before. And so we're doing the same thing with our foster children by giving them new experiences in our home. So let's move on. Oh, and about the routine, I did want to note that getting a child into a routine, that helps build trust in the relationship between the foster parent and the child, that they know that you're going to follow through on what you say, that every morning they're going to have breakfast. They don't have to worry about whether they're going to eat that morning, because they know every day you're going to feed them breakfast. If they're worried about dinner, it may help to say, dinner's at this time. This is what we're going to have. Do you want to look at the menu for the week? Things like that, that they know they're going to get to eat. They're going to get to go to school. They're going to get to do the things that are important, and you're not going to neglect them, and if they have come from a past of neglect. All right, so let's look at chapter 3. And chapter 3 is I Am Loved. So it opens with boyfriend is still confused. Am I a rescue? He's questioning who he is. And he's looking at his reflection in the washer. And then foster mom answers a phone call. And so she is talking to someone about boyfriend, and we know it's a possible adoptive family for him, and she's taking applications. She says that he is just a darling, and she's received so many emails and phone calls about him, but that she would read their application. And so boyfriend is listening, and he's gaining self-esteem because he's hearing how she talks about him, how she describes him, and realizes that that is how she thinks of him, and that's how he should think of himself, that he is super sweet, and he's funny, and he's a great dog. And so we want that encouragement there. And then she says that he's got character. So he thinks those are the shades of his fur, so he's a little confused. So here, was talking about the process of fostering a dog, and what that means for her, that she takes dogs in and they work on recovery, of course, health-wise, receiving medical care, and then they work on behavior, obedience, and socializing, which is a bit different for people, but of course we want to help those children heal and to recover, so that would be the same. And so here they're continuing with their routine, and foster mom is putting boyfriend to bed and letting him know, what's tomorrow? Here are your expectations. We're going to have a big day tomorrow. And he doesn't understand exactly what they're going to do the next day, but he's going to get to meet his pre-adopted family. So the next morning he's got breakfast, and then he's ready to go play outside. And so when he gets outside, there is a surprise there, and there's a little girl named Sarah, and her mom had come to visit him. And he is so excited. He notices that Sarah's small like him, and she loves to run just like him. And so they play and they play. And she even likes hugs, just like him. So he's excited to make a friend. And he's questioning Sarah, do you like to play outdoors? Do you have a bicycle? Could I run next to your bicycle? Could I run while on my leash? Do you play fetch? All of these things, he's picturing what their life together would be like and seeing what they have in common. They play for a while and go back inside, and boyfriend shows Sarah around the house, and they notice how he sees his reflection and everything, and that's definitely a part of his funny character. And so foster mom talks to Sarah and her mother about possibly adopting him and how it's permanent and how important it is, and all of the responsibility that's going to come with caring for him, his medical care, and making sure, he gets his walks and his food and stays on his routine. And so she tells them to go home, talk about it, think about it, make sure that this is a commitment that they want to make. And so they leave, and boyfriend, he's got a little tear coming down. He's really sad that they're leaving. And foster mom had told Sarah and her mom if they decide that boyfriend's a good fit for him, to just come back first thing in the morning, feed him breakfast, and they'll discuss a little bit more about him, and they can take him home. And so they did. They came back the next morning and fed him breakfast and took him home. And so he was so excited to finally have his forever family. And then foster mom is going off to get her next dog. So she's on to the next that she's going to help nurse back to health and to live a good life. So that was Boyfriend. If you want a copy, please let us know and we'll get you one. But let's look at chapter 3. Okay, chapter 3, I Am Loved. Boyfriend hears his foster mom speak positively about him to someone on the phone. And this helps boost his self-esteem, and it breaks the cycle of the negative views that he may have about himself. Of course, a lot of our foster children coming into care, they may have very negative views of themselves, especially if they've come from an emotionally abusive situation, physically abusive. The views that they may have heard about them, they aren't true. They're just negative views, and we have to help rebuild the views that they have about themselves. And so your role as a foster parent is so important in that, because they're going to be listening to the adults in their lives, their opinions about them. And so anything that you can reinforce, positive reinforcement, anything that they do right, if you can encourage that, of course, if there are negative behaviors, we want to address it. But when they're doing well, make sure you let them know, because we want to just build that self-esteem, let them know that when they do right, that is noticed, that is great, and we are so proud. And then boyfriend visits with his pre-adoptive family. Sometimes in foster care, they'll go on to an adoptive family. Hopefully they get to stay, if you've been fostering a child for a while and they're able to be adopted, hopefully that they would be able to stay with you. But if not, then we need to work on that transition. And so here, foster mom helps the pre-adoptive family get to know boyfriend's personality. They get to know his likes, his dislikes, and the foster parents do the same by providing information about a child. And that could be to a pre-adoptive home if they're not staying with you, and kinship caregivers. That's definitely on the rise in South Carolina, so that's great. And then, of course, reunification, when they're going back to their birth family, the family of origin. Children change so quickly. So that going back into reunification, that's going to take help. It's going to take a lot of work between the family of origin and you. Especially depending on how long the child's been in your home, you're going to know all the things they like right now, the phases they're in, the struggles they're having, all of the positive things about them, how their personalities may have changed since they were removed from the home. That family's going to need your help. And especially in the case of kinship caregivers, if it's more of a distant relative, they may not know anything about the child. So they're going to need all of the information that you can give and the support that you can give, making that transition. And of course, I did want to add that in foster care, reunification is always the goal. And so that's probably going to be the biggest, is preparing for reunification, making sure that you're keeping up with those milestones, maybe taking note of what the child likes, what the child doesn't like, favorite things, because we all know, a child can be home with you one day, there's court, and then they're heading home. And so we need to plan for that. As painful as that can be, it does happen. And so we want to plan for that by having information ready for that situation. All right, so how can we help our foster children? So the first would be to identify triggers. Is there something that you're doing, something that you're saying, or have you noticed something that distracts your child or makes them anxious? What results in a tantrum? If you can draw any parallels between something that's happened and then a reaction, trying to mitigate that, identify those triggers. If it's a child that's come from a physically abusive home where mom and dad were always fighting and throwing things, loud noises may be a huge issue. And so trying to, I'll give an example. Maybe taking that child to Monster Jam is not the best choice. So things like that, if you know that that's a trigger for your child, just trying to avoid those things so that your child feels comfortable. And then be emotionally and physically available. Provide attention, comfort, and encouragement. And what's so important about that is to follow your child's lead. They may not be ready to talk all the time. So if you can just be available, when you're with them, just put the phone down and just be there. Be there with them. And so that if they feel ready to talk, you're there. That they're not forced to it, but if they feel led, you're there. They know you're available to talk about those things. And then respond. Don't react. When your child's upset, do what you can to keep calm. Take a few deep breaths. Lower your voice and be reassuring and honest. And I know that sometimes our children, they are looking for a reaction just because they want a response. And so trying to catch that in yourself, take a breath, calm down, lower your voice, and let them know that, you're going to respond to them, that you see the need underneath. Then maybe they were trying to get a reaction out of you, but that you're going to give them a response instead. And then don't take behavior personally. Kind of goes right along with what we were saying before. But allow the child to experience feelings without judgment. They can be angry. Let them be angry. But also know that when we're angry, we need to think about what we do with that anger. But it's okay to be angry. It's okay to experience your feelings. We all have feelings. And as foster parents, we just can't take it personally. And then listen. Don't avoid those difficult conversations. Take child's reactions seriously. Listen to that, and then correct any misinformation about the traumatic event. And if they want to talk about it, talk about it. Don't force them to talk about it, but reassure them that what happened, their traumatic past, or the event that brought them into care, it's not their fault. It's not their fault. Just because the adults in their lives may have let them down, it is not their fault. And then help your child learn to relax. Encourage child to practice slow breathing. I have a little picture there of balloon breathing. So to blow up their belly, you can practice with them. Inhale, exhale, let that balloon out. And so encouraging them to practice slow breathing, maybe listening to some calming music, and then saying positive things like, I am safe now. Maybe looking in the mirror to do that. And then, of course, as Christians, I would add that we can pray together. When your child's upset, maybe take them by the hand and ask if they want to pray. Take a few deep breaths and just talk to God about it together. If they want to do it alone, of course, that's okay too. But if they would like to pray with you, that can help as well. So be consistent and predictable. So we talked about having a routine. So let's have a routine for meals, play time and preparing your child for changes. And this includes your biological children. They need to know that, especially with a new placement coming into the home, prepare your biological children. If you know what the child's been through, say it was that physically abusive home where everything was so loud, maybe encourage your children not to be roughhousing with loud toys, and, to be aware of where your foster child's come from, and to prepare your biological children for that as well. And then be patient. That's so important. And we all know that, but sometimes it takes a minute just to be reminded of that. Be patient, and also patient waiting for things to change for the child, for progress to be made, for them to feel comfortable in your home, that it may be nothing you're doing, you may be doing everything right, but it just takes time. It takes patience. And then allow some control. So that would be to give age-appropriate choices. Like if you have a few choices for lunch, would you like this lunch or this lunch? Here are some outfits you could wear tomorrow. Which one do you like best? Would you rather wear these shoes or these shoes? So just choices like that. Or Friday night, you're going to watch a movie. Let them have a choice in that. Between a few choices, not to make it overwhelming. And then to encourage self-esteem. So we want to encourage positive experiences. Let them know that they're doing a great job, that they really listened well today. They were great in their routine, whatever it may be, did a great job at school, and that you're so proud of them, and they've made so much progress, and that they are just really doing very well. And it helps build that self-esteem, and they start to believe those things about themselves. I am smart. I do the right thing, whatever it may be. And this is so important, and I know most of you will have heard this before, but be ready to ask for help when you have a child who has been traumatized, and every child in foster care has been in some aspect, that counseling may be appropriate. So mental health counseling or therapy by a professional trained to recognize and treat trauma in child care can help find the root cause of the child's behavior, promote healing, aid the foster parent in understanding the child and responding effectively, and then providing medications if necessary. So what you can do is ask your child's caseworker. Most children coming into care, they would have had a mental health assessment. So you can ask them about that and what the recommendations were. Where can you go from there? And your child's caseworker will have some providers that they may recommend to get in some trauma-focused therapy, and find the best provider for your particular child and their needs. And of course, you can ask your Miracle Hill care coordinator as well. They can work together with your caseworker and help find the best provider for the child. And here I have a resource guide. So just a few things. I have one that I really like. If you go to the childwelfare.gov website, see, I think I have a printed guide. So this has a whole fact sheet. It's really helpful. Let me pull it up so I'll show you a little bit. So here it's got guides through what is trauma. A part that I really like has some examples of triggers here. And it's also got a table here that shows the signs of trauma by age groups. So if you just go to childwelfare.gov, that will have that one. And this one, the name of that is Parenting a Child Who Has Experienced Trauma. And this one's got some ways to help your child. And then it also talks about secondary trauma, which is the trauma that you as a foster parent experience as you're trying to help your child through what they're experiencing. That can be difficult for you too. And then, yeah, so that's parenting a child who has experienced trauma. And then the next one I have is from the American Academy of Pediatrics. And it's Parenting After Trauma, Understanding Your Child's Needs, a guide for foster and adoptive parents. That is also a great guide, and you can find that on their website. And that's aap.org. You can find that family handout. And then we also have a webinar, if you look back on our training spreadsheet, on the book Wounded Children Healing Homes, How Traumatized Children Impact Adoptive and Foster Families. That's a great book resource that you can check out at your library, and some of our online library sources have that as well. And then I did want to tell just a personal story, just to connect it again with our dogs, that sometimes a placement isn't right for your family. Sometimes it's not right for the child, it's not right for you, you just don't fit well together, and that is okay. So, for instance, I adopted 2 dogs before I got married, about a year before I got married, Buffy and Dexter. And Buffy was my female dog. They were from the same litter of puppies. And she was always just feisty, fun, wild and out. And I loved her so dearly. And she had no issues. She had no issues when I got married. But then when my first son was born, she began to become jealous. She wasn't aggressive with him, but she would just shake. She would act weird, and just very kind of possessive of me. And we didn't have many issues after that until I was pregnant with my second son. And I guess she sensed that, I don't know, I guess I smelled different. I don't know. But she just knew. And her behavior started to change. She started to really get aggressive with me in a possessive way, just lots of jumping and scratching and tearing up the house if I wasn't there. She had to be with me all the time. So if I had to go to work, she was just a wreck. So if we put her inside the house, she'd destroy it. If we put her in the backyard, she'd scale the fence and leave. We even had the little shock collar to keep her in. That didn't work. She didn't care. So after a few months of that, it had really just worn down our family, and we were all just tired. We're having to look for her constantly. If she'd leave the yard, it was to the point we'd let her out to the bathroom and she would just go. Even a leash, she'd wriggle out of it, go. And it was just difficult. And so one night, it was the 4th of July, she somehow, we don't know if she got it caught on a fence. We don't know what she did, but she somehow like completely dislocated her leg. And the surgery was going to be a lot of money. And at that point, we had had months of just crazy behavior. She was hurting me all the time, just trying to get my attention, just jumping on me repeatedly, really hard. And we wouldn't let her around our son, and it was just really bad. And so my husband, and I understand this, he said, no way. I think we just need to put her down. And I was really upset about it at the time, but now I understood he had been through months of her being rough with me, having to protect our son from her. It was, and we couldn't rehome her because of her behavior. Nobody wanted her. So fortunately, my parents took her. And so we didn't have to make that choice. And she has been happier there. She's out in the country. There's nowhere to run away. She gets more attention. There's no children in the home. And she still gets to see me. I still go visit her all the time. But the positive of that, as painful as that was for me, I missed her. I wanted her there, but her behavior, I couldn't manage it. I couldn't keep her safe. I just couldn't. And so what came out of that, though, is our other dog, Dexter. He had always been kind of underweight, kind of pitiful, timid. And we thought that's just how he was. We couldn't figure out why he was kind of underweight. We guess he just had a high metabolism. And what we realized is we hadn't been staying with them to watch them eat. So he would start to eat, and then after we would leave, Buffy would push him away from his food. And that she had really been bullying him pretty badly. And after she was gone, he started to thrive. So what was a painful situation. I missed my dog. I loved her as much as she had put me through. I loved her so dearly. Our other dog began to thrive. He just looked happier. His tail was wagging. He didn't tuck it. He was playing, and he was so nurturing and loving toward my son. And he just became like a brand new dog. And so for him, it was a wonderful thing. So that, just to talk about placements, children are very different. But if a placement doesn't work and it's becoming a huge strain on your family, that's okay. You gave it your best effort. Of course, ask for support, and we're going to try to find a way to make it work. But if it can't, that's okay. There may be somewhere else better for the child. There may be, a better situation for you. It may not be what you're doing.